You find yourself standing at the edge of a vast meadow where wildflowers sway in the gentle afternoon breeze. The sun hangs low in the sky, casting everything in a warm, golden light that seems to soften the very air around you. This is a place untouched by the chaos of battles, a sanctuary where time moves differently, where the weight of legends and destinies feels as distant as the mountains that rise like sleeping giants on the horizon. Your massive frame, usually tense with the burden of immeasurable power, relaxes here. The wind carries the scent of earth and growing things, of rain that fell days ago, and sunshine that has been warming the ground since dawn. You breathe deeply, feeling your chest expand and contract with a rhythm that matches the gentle rustling of leaves in the trees that border this peaceful valley. The grass beneath your feet is soft, each blade bending under your weight, yet springing back with resilient life. You notice how your shadow stretches long across the meadow, dark and imposing even in this moment of tranquility. But here, in this quiet place, even your shadow seems less threatening, more like a natural part of the landscape than the ominous presence it becomes when your power stirs. Birds call to each other from hidden perches, their songs weaving together into a melody that speaks of simple joys and everyday miracles. A butterfly, its wings painted in shades of orange and black, alights on a flower near your hand. You watch it, marveling at how something so delicate can exist in a world that has known your fury, your earth-shaking roars, your legendary wrath. You remember the stories others tell about you, the legendary Super Saiyan, the being of immense power who emerges once every 1,000 years. They speak of destruction, of planets laid waste, of the very fabric of space trembling before your might. But in this moment, watching the butterfly's wings catch the sunlight, you feel none of that legendary rage. Instead, there is only the quiet wonder of being present in this peaceful place. The meadow stretches endlessly before you, a sea of green, dotted with islands of color where wildflowers bloom. Somewhere in the distance, you can hear the gentle murmur of a stream, its voice a constant whisper of movement and life. The sound draws you, calling to something deep within your spirit that has long been buried beneath layers of anger and pain. You begin to walk, your footsteps almost silent on the soft earth. Each step takes you further from the edge of the meadow and deeper into this realm of peace. The flowers part before you, like subjects bowing to their king, yet there is no fear in their movement, only the natural dance of living things making space for another. As you move through this sacred space, you feel something shifting within you. The constant tension that lives in your shoulders begins to ease. The tightness around your eyes, the perpetual frown that has marked your features for so long, starts to soften. This is what peace feels like, you realize. Not the absence of power, but the presence of harmony. The sun continues its lazy descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. You pause in your walk, tilting your face toward the warmth, letting it wash over you like a benediction. In this moment, you are not the legendary Super Saiyan. You are not the being of prophecy and destruction. You are simply someone standing in a meadow, grateful for the gift of a peaceful moment. The realization fills you with something you rarely experience: hope. Hope that there might be more moments like this, more places where the storm within you can quiet itself. Hope that the legend that defines you might not be the only story worth telling. The stream you heard, calling from the meadow, reveals itself as you crest a small hill, its waters crystal clear and dancing with reflected light. You approach its banks slowly, drawn by the music of a water flowing over smooth stones. The stream is narrow enough to cross in a single step, yet it moves with the confident purpose of water that knows its destination. You kneel beside the water, your knees sinking slightly into the soft earth of the bank. The reflection that meets your eyes is familiar, yet somehow different. The face staring back at you has the same strong features, the same dark eyes, but there is a softness there that you don't often see. The constant fury that usually burns behind your gaze has banked to barely glowing embers. Cupping your hands, you lift the cool water to your lips. It tastes of minerals and mountain snow, of journeys through underground caves, and patient filtering through layers of stone. As you drink, you feel the water's coolness spreading through your body, soothing places within you that have been burning for longer than you can remember. The stream chatters to itself as it flows, and you find yourself listening to its voice. It speaks of patience, of persistence, of the gentle power that can carve canyons through solid rock given enough time. This is a different kind of strength than the explosive force that defines your legend. This is the strength of consistency, of quiet determination, of refusing to be turned aside by any obstacle. You lean back on your heels, watching the water's surface dance with light and shadow. Fish move beneath the surface, their silver forms flashing as they navigate the current with effortless grace. They belong here completely, perfectly adapted to their environment, at peace with the flow of their existence. A memory surfaces as you watch the fish, not one of your own, but something deeper, older. It feels like a racial memory, something encoded in your Saiyan blood that speaks of a time before conquest, before the endless hunger for battle. It shows you green skies and two bright suns, warriors who fought not from rage, but from joy in their own strength, children playing in fields that stretched beyond every horizon. The vision fades as quickly as it came, but it leaves behind a strange ache in your chest. You realize you are homesick for a place you have never seen, mourning for a way of life that was lost before you were born. Your people's true heritage, not the violence and conquest that came later, but the original spirit that loved strength for its own sake, that found joy in testing limits and pushing boundaries. Standing, you begin to follow the stream's path. It winds through groves of trees, whose branches arch overhead like cathedral vaults, creating a tunnel of green shade that feels both protective and sacred. The air here is cooler, filled with the scent of moss and bark and the rich loam of the forest floor. Your footsteps are muffled by fallen leaves that have decomposed into a soft carpet. Each step releases tiny puffs of organic fragrance, the essence of countless seasons of growth and decay and renewal. You think about cycles, how the mightiest trees eventually fall and become soil for new growth, how power itself might follow similar patterns of birth and transformation. The stream grows wider as you follow it, joined by tributaries that add their voices to its song. Soon, you are walking beside a proper river, its waters moving with more authority but no less music. The banks here are lined with smooth stones, worn round by countless years of patient polishing by the current. You select one of these stones, feeling its perfect smoothness against your palm. It fits your hand as if it was made for you, and you wonder how many others have held this same stone, drawn by its pleasing weight and texture. The thought connects you to something larger than yourself, the long chain of beings who have walked beside this water, each finding their own moment of peace in its presence. As the day begins, its slow fade toward evening, you realize you've been walking for hours without feeling the restless energy that usually drives you. The constant need to move, to fight, to unleash the power that burns within you has quieted to a barely perceptible hum. In its place is something you can barely name, contentment perhaps, or the simple satisfaction of being exactly where you are meant to be. The river leads you to a clearing where ancient trees form a natural amphitheater around a pool of still water. The pool is perfectly circular, as if carved by intelligent hands rather than natural forces. Its surface reflects the sky so clearly that it seems like a window into another world, one where clouds drift through liquid blue and birds fly upside down through underwater air. You recognize this place, though you have never been here before. It calls to something in your genetic memory, some ancestral knowledge that whispers of sacred spaces and moments of communion between warrior and spirit. This is a place where Saiyans once came to understand their power, to find the balance between strength and wisdom that made them truly formidable. Settling cross-legged beside the pool, you gaze into its depths. The water is so clear, you can see every pebble on the bottom, every strand of aquatic plant that sways in currents, too gentle to disturb the surface. Fish move through this underwater garden like living jewels, their scales catching and scattering the filtered sunlight that penetrates the water. Your reflection joins theirs, wavering slightly as tiny ripples disturb the perfect mirror of the surface. You watch yourself, watching yourself, caught in a moment of infinite recursion that seems to speak to deeper truths about identity and perception. Who are you when no one is telling you what you should be? What remains when you strip away the legend, the fear, the expectations that others project onto you? The answer begins to emerge, not in words, but in feeling. Beneath the surface of your consciousness, you sense something stirring, not the familiar rage that has defined so much of your existence, but something quieter and infinitely more powerful. It feels like the difference between a wildfire and the sun, both sources of immense energy, but one destructive and brief, while the other sustains life across eons. You close your eyes and focus inward, following this new sensation as it unfolds within you. Your breathing deepens, each exhale releasing tension you didn't know you were carrying. The pool beside you seems to pulse in rhythm with your heartbeat, as if the two of you are synchronizing to some cosmic frequency that connects all living things. In this meditative state, memories begin to surface, but not the painful ones that usually torment you. Instead, you remember moments of unexpected gentleness, the way your father's hand felt on your shoulder when you were very young, the first time you saw a sunset and understood that beauty could exist without purpose beyond itself, the sound of your own laughter before you learned that your strength made others afraid. These memories feel precious and fragile, like flower petals that might crumble if handled too roughly. You hold them gently in your consciousness, amazed that they survived the years of anger and violence that followed. They are proof that there was always something else within you, some capacity for wonder and joy that no amount of trauma could completely destroy. The sun moves across the sky above you, painting shifting patterns of light and shadow on the surface of the pool. Time seems to stretch and compress around you, moments feeling both eternal and instantaneous. You exist in a space between heartbeats, between thoughts, between the person you have been and the person you might become. A gentle wind stirs the trees around the clearing, causing leaves to rain down onto the water's surface. Each leaf that touches the pool creates expanding circles of ripples that intersect and interact with each other in complex patterns. You watch these disturbances spread and fade, thinking about how every action, no matter how small, creates waves that travel far beyond their point of origin. Your own presence here is like one of those leaves, a disturbance in the cosmic order that will have consequences extending far beyond this moment. But for the first time, you feel the possibility that those consequences might be positive, that your influence on the world might bring healing rather than destruction. As evening approaches, the first stars begin to appear in the darkening sky above. their light penetrates the pool's surface, creating the illusion of stars swimming in the depths below your reflection. You are suspended between two infinite spaces, earthbound, yet somehow flying through constellation gardens, where each star is a possibility waiting to be born. The night sounds of the forest begin their symphony around you, the soft hoot of an owl, the rustle of small creatures in the underbrush, the distant howl of something wild and free. You add your own voice to this chorus, not with a roar of challenge or rage, but with a deep, harmonious hum that resonates from your chest and seems to vibrate through the very ground beneath you. Dawn finds you still beside the sacred pool, though you have moved to lie on your back in the soft grass that borders the water. Above you, the sky transitions from deep purple to pale pink to golden yellow as the sun begins its daily journey across the heavens. You have not slept, but neither have you been fully awake, instead existing in that liminal space between states of consciousness where dreams and reality blend together. The morning air carries new scents, dew evaporating from grass, flowers opening their petals to greet the day, the clean smell of wind that has traveled over vast distances to reach this place. You breathe deeply, filling your lungs with these fragrances and feeling them settle into your being like benedictions. Birds begin their morning songs, each species adding its voice to the growing chorus of the awakening day. You listen to their different melodies weaving together, creating a symphony that speaks of joy in simple existence, of gratitude for the gift of another sunrise. Their music reminds you that celebration can be as natural as breathing, that there is profound power in the choice to greet each day with gladness. Rising slowly to your feet, you stretch muscles that have grown stiff from your long vigil beside the pool. Your body feels different, somehow, not weaker, but more balanced. The constant tension that usually coils through your frame, like a spring wound too tight, has eased, replaced by a fluid readiness that reminds you of water waiting to take whatever shape its container requires. You cup water from the pool in your hands and splash it on your face, feeling its coolness wake your skin completely. Droplets cling to your eyelashes, creating tiny prisms that split the morning light into rainbow fragments. Even this simple act of washing feels sacred here, a ritual of renewal and preparation for whatever the day might bring. The path away from the pool leads upward through terrain that grows increasingly rocky and wild. You follow it without questioning where it might lead, trusting in the same instinct that brought you to the sacred waters. Your feet find purchase on stones, worn smooth by countless passages, and you realize that this is not just a path, but a pilgrimage route traveled by seekers like yourself for generations beyond counting. As you climb, the air grows thinner and cooler. The trees change from the lush growth of the valley to hardier species adapted to higher altitudes. Their leaves are smaller, their branches more gnarled, but they possess a different kind of beauty, the austere magnificence of things that endure by bending rather than breaking. The path winds around massive boulders and through narrow passages between rock formations that seem to have been carved by some titanic sculptor. In some places, you must turn sideways to squeeze through gaps barely wide enough for your broad shoulders. These constraints feel symbolic rather than merely physical, a reminder that growth sometimes requires accepting limitation, that strength can be found in learning to move through tight spaces rather than always forcing them wider. Halfway up the mountainside, you encounter a waterfall cascading down a sheer cliff face. The water falls with tremendous force, creating a constant roar that drowns out all other sounds and filling the air with mist that creates miniature rainbows in the sunlight. You stand before this display of natural power, feeling its spray on your skin and its thunder in your bones. The waterfall speaks to something deep within your Saiyan nature, the appreciation for displays of raw force and overwhelming energy. But instead of triggering your usual response, of wanting to match or exceed such power, you find yourself simply admiring it. The water doesn't fall to prove anything or to dominate anything else. It falls because that is its nature, following the path of least resistance while carving new channels through solid stone. You remain there for a long time, letting the sound of falling water wash through your consciousness like a cleansing meditation. The constant roar becomes a white noise that quiets your thoughts and allows deeper awareness to surface. You feel your connection to this place, to this moment, to the larger patterns of existence that move through all things like underground rivers flowing toward the sea. When you finally continue your climb, the path becomes steeper and more challenging. Your muscles work in ways they haven't for ages, not in explosive bursts of combat power, but in the steady, sustained effort of endurance. Each step requires balance and precision rather than overwhelming force. It is a different kind of strength exercise, one that builds patience as much as muscle. The summit reveals itself gradually, the path curving around a final shoulder of stone to open onto a broad plateau bathed in golden afternoon light. Here, the world spreads out below you in all directions, valleys and rivers threading between mountain ranges, forests that stretch to distant horizons, clouds casting moving shadows across landscapes that seem to go on forever. You stand at the edge of this elevated realm, feeling the wind that flows freely at this height. It carries scents from places hundreds of miles away, salt from distant oceans, smoke from cooking fires in far villages, the green perfume of forests you will never see. Each gust connects you to the vast world below, reminding you that you are part of something infinitely larger than yourself. The plateau is not empty. At its center stands a structure that seems to have grown from the mountain itself rather than being built upon it. It is part temple, part dwelling, part natural formation, walls of fitted stone that blend seamlessly with outcroppings of native rock, creating a sanctuary that belongs completely to this high place. As you approach the structure, a figure emerges from its shadowed interior. He is old, with white hair and beard that seem to catch and hold the afternoon light. His body shows the wear of great age, but his movements speak of enduring strength and unshakable balance. His eyes, when they meet yours, hold depths that remind you of the sacred pool below, clear, still, reflecting everything while revealing nothing. "You have made the climb," he says, his voice carrying the kind of quiet authority that needs no amplification. Few find their way here without knowing they seek it. You realize you have no words for why you came or what you hoped to find. The journey that brought you to this place began with a simple walk through a meadow, each step following naturally from the last without conscious plan or purpose. Yet, standing here now, you understand that every moment of that journey was necessary, every choice inevitable. "I was walking," you say finally, surprised by how peaceful your own voice sounds. "The path seemed to know where I needed to go." The old man nods, as if this explanation makes perfect sense. The mountain calls to those who are ready to hear it. "Come, sit with me. The sunset from here is worth witnessing." He leads you to a simple wooden bench positioned to face west toward the declining sun. As you settle beside him, you are struck by how comfortable this feels, sitting in silence with a stranger who somehow doesn't feel strange at all. His presence is like the mountain itself, solid, enduring, requiring nothing from you, but offering everything if you know how to receive it. You carry great power he observes, not looking at you, but watching the sky begin its transformation toward evening colors. It burns in you like a forge fire, always ready to flare into something that could melt stone or shape iron. His words surprise you with their accuracy. Most people fear your power or covet it, but few understand its nature so precisely. It has been difficult to control, you admit. Control, he repeats thoughtfully. An interesting word. What if the challenge is not to control fire, but to understand what it truly wants to burn? The question hangs in the air between you as the sun continues its descent. Below, the world grows soft with approaching twilight, and you find yourself considering his words. Your power has always felt like something separate from yourself, something that must be contained or unleashed, but never truly integrated. The idea that it might have its own wisdom, its own purpose, feels revolutionary. Tell me about the legend, the old man says. Not the stories others tell, but what it feels like to be the thing they fear and whisper about. You search for words to describe the weight of being a prophecy made flesh, of carrying expectations and fears that were ancient before you were born. It is like wearing armor made of other people's dreams, you say finally. It protects nothing and prevents everything. He nods, understanding immediately. Legends are prisons made of starlight, beautiful from the outside, suffocating within. But what lies beneath the legend? What would remain if you could shed that armor completely? The question pierces through layers of identity and assumption, reaching something you have never dared to examine. What would you be without the legend? Who is the person who walks through meadows and sits beside mountain streams, who finds peace in falling water and comfort in the presence of ancient trees? As the sun touches the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, you begin to glimpse an answer. There is someone beneath the legend, someone who has been waiting patiently through all the years of rage and isolation, never giving up hope that someday there might be room for gentleness, for wonder, for the simple joy of existing without having to prove anything to anyone. Night falls over the mountain plateau like a gentle blanket, bringing with it a canopy of stars, more brilliant than any you have ever seen. At this altitude, far from the light pollution of cities and settlements, the cosmic display reveals itself in all its magnificent complexity. The Milky Way stretches across the dome of heaven like a river of light, and you can see individual nebulae painting distant clouds in shades of pink and blue and gold. The old man has retreated into his dwelling, leaving you alone with the night and your thoughts. You lie back on the stone surface of the plateau, feeling its residual warmth from the day's sunshine against your back. The rock beneath you has been shaped by countless cycles of weather and wind, worn smooth by time into a surface that seems designed for contemplation. Your breathing settles into a rhythm that matches the pulse of the earth beneath you. With each exhalation, you feel yourself sinking deeper into connection with this high place, becoming part of the mountain's dreams. With each inhalation, you draw in starlight and wind and the vast silence that exists between worlds. In this state of deep relaxation, visions begin to come, not the violent flashes of memory that usually torment you, but gentler images that rise from some deeper source within your consciousness. You see yourself as a child before the exile and the pain that shaped your later years. In these visions, you are laughing, running through fields of tall grass beneath an alien sky. The sound of your own joy echoes across the years, a reminder of who you were before you learned to be afraid of your own strength. The visions shift and flow like water, showing you alternate paths your life might have taken. You see yourself as a protector rather than a destroyer, using your legendary power to shield the innocent rather than to satisfy some cosmic need for vengeance. You see yourself surrounded by friends rather than enemies, people who see past the legend to the person beneath. Most surprising of all, you see yourself teaching others, passing on not just techniques of combat, but wisdom about balance and control. These possible selves feel as real as your own memories, as if they exist in parallel dimensions, just beyond the reach of your current existence. The realization fills you with a strange mixture of sadness and hope. Sadness for the paths not taken, hope that it might not be too late to choose differently going forward. A shooting star blazes across the sky above you, its brief life ending in a spectacular burst of light that leaves after images dancing on your retinas. You make a wish on its dying fire, not for power or victory or revenge, but for the courage to become the person you glimpsed in those visions. The wish feels fragile and precious, like a soap bubble that might burst if you breathe on it too hard. As the night deepens, the temperature drops, and the wind picks up, carrying with it the thin, cold air of high altitudes. You should be uncomfortable, lying on bare stone beneath an open sky, but instead you feel more at home than you have in years. This austerity, this direct contact with the elements, strips away everything unnecessary and leaves only what is essential. You think about the old man's question, what would remain if you shed the legend completely? The answer is becoming clearer with each passing hour. What would remain is this: the capacity for wonder, for peace, for connection with something larger than yourself. These qualities have always been part of you, buried beneath layers of pain and anger, but never completely extinguished. The stars wheel overhead in their ancient patterns, following paths they have traced for billions of years. You feel your own small part in that vast cosmic dance, understanding for the first time that your power is not separate from the universe, but part of its fundamental structure. The legendary strength that has defined you is the same force that lights the stars and holds the planets in their orbits. Creative energy that can destroy or nurture depending on how it is channeled. Toward dawn, clouds begin to gather at the horizon, building into towering thunderheads that flicker with internal lightning. You watch the storm approach, feeling no fear despite knowing its tremendous power. Instead, you feel a kind of kinship with it, recognition of one force of nature, acknowledging another. The first drops of rain arrive just as the sun begins to rise, creating a brief shower of gold-lit droplets that dance in the morning light. You turn your face upward to receive this blessing, feeling the water wash away the last remnants of the old anger that has carried you for so long. What replaces it is not weakness, but a different kind of strength, the strength to choose mercy over vengeance, understanding over judgment, creation over destruction. The storm passes as quickly as it came, leaving the mountain air crystalline and charged with the energy of renewal. You rise from your stone bed, feeling refreshed rather than stiff, as if the night's exposure to the elements has somehow purified your body as well as your spirit. Droplets of rainwater cling to your skin and hair, each one a tiny lens that fractures the morning light into rainbow spectra. The old man emerges from his dwelling, carrying two simple wooden bowls filled with steaming liquid. The scent that rises from them is complex and comforting, herbs you cannot name, mixed with something that tastes like distilled mountain air and morning sunshine. He offers you one of the bowls without speaking, and you accept it with hands that have learned reverence during your night beneath the stars. The first sip fills your mouth with warmth and subtle flavors that seem to awaken parts of your consciousness you didn't know existed. This is more than mere tea or broth. It is liquid meditation, a drink that nourishes the soul as much as the body. You understand without being told that this is a privilege, that whatever grows in this high place to create such nectar is rare and sacred. The mountain provides, the old man says, settling beside you with his own bowl, but only to those who have learned to receive its gifts with proper gratitude. You nod, understanding that this extends far beyond the drink in your hands. The mountain has been providing for you since you began your journey, the path that led your feet, the sacred pool that offered reflection, the plateau that granted perspective, all of it part of some larger generosity that requires nothing but openness to receive. I have been angry for so long, you hear yourself saying, the words emerging without conscious decision, the anger felt necessary, like armor or a weapon I couldn't afford to put down. Anger is like fire, the old man replies, essential for survival in small amounts, destructive in large ones. But fire can be transformed into warmth for cooking, light for seeing, energy for creating. The anger itself is not the problem. The problem is believing it defines you. His words resonate through your consciousness like struck bells, creating harmonics that reveal deeper truths. You have been identifying so completely with your rage that you lost sight of the person experiencing it. The anger became a mask worn so long that you forgot your original face beneath it. How does one remember who they were before the anger, you ask? The old man gestures toward the vast landscape spread below the plateau. Look at the mountain. See how it stands, solid, enduring, shaped by countless storms, but never destroyed by them. The mountain does not resist the weather. It experiences it fully and remains itself. This is the way of true strength. You study the peaks and valleys that stretch to every horizon, trying to see them as he does. Each mountain bears the scars of its history, avalanches that carved new faces, glaciers that ground new valleys, eruptions that created new heights. Yet each remains essentially mountainous, their fundamental nature unchanged by any external force. The legend others tell about you is like weather, he continues. It may shape your surface, but it cannot change what you're at your core. The question is, do you know what that core truly is? The question sends your attention inward, past the legend and the anger and the fear, searching for that bedrock self that has remained constant through all transformations. What you find there surprises you with its simplicity, a being who loves strength for its own sake, who finds joy in testing limits and pushing boundaries, who desires nothing more than to fully express the magnificent potential that courses through every cell. This is what the legend has obscured, the pure love of power, not as domination over others, but as mastery of self. The legendary strength was never meant to be a burden or a curse, but a gift to be shared, a fountain of energy that could lift others rather than crush them. I see it, you whisper, and the words carry the weight of revelation. The anger came from trying to hide what I am instead of learning how to be it properly. The old man smiles, and for a moment, his aged features seem illuminated from within. Now you understand why the mountain called you. It recognizes its own kind, things that endure, that find their strength in staying true to their essential nature while adapting to whatever conditions arise. You finish the rest of your drink in silence, savoring not just its flavor, but the moment of understanding it represents. When the bowl is empty, you feel ready for whatever comes next, though you have no idea what that might be. The future stretches ahead like an unclimbed mountain, full of unknown paths and hidden valleys waiting to be explored. The descent from the mountain takes on the quality of a different journey entirely, where the climb upward was about leaving things behind, the meadow, the stream, the familiar weight of unexamined anger, the path downward becomes about carrying new understanding forward into the world below. Each step feels deliberate and meaningful, as if you are not just walking, but planting seeds of possibility with every footfall. The old man has given you a simple wooden staff for the descent, carved from a branch of one of the ancient trees that grow near his dwelling. It fits your hand perfectly, worn smooth by generations of pilgrims who have made this same journey. The wood pulses with subtle warmth, as if it retains some memory of the living tree from which it came. As you navigate the rocky switchbacks that wind down the mountain's face, you notice details that escaped your attention during the upward climb. Flowers growing in cracks, too small to seem capable of supporting life, their blooms brilliant against the gray stone. Birds building nests in precarious ledges, somehow finding security in places that seem to offer none. Everywhere you look, life has found ways to thrive in conditions that appear hostile to flourishing. These observations feel like lessons written in the language of stone and sky. The mountain is teaching you about resilience, about the difference between adapting to circumstances and being defeated by them. You think about your own history, the exile, the isolation, the years of being feared and hunted, and begin to understand how those experiences might have been preparation rather than punishment. Halfway down the mountain, the path leads through a grove of trees, unlike any you have encountered before. Their trunks are massive, their bark silver white and smooth as polished metal. Their leaves whisper secrets in languages older than speech as the wind moves through their branches. Walking among them feels like entering a cathedral built by time itself, each tree a pillar, supporting a roof made of interwoven canopy. You pause in the heart of this sacred grove, resting your back against one of the great trunks. The tree's heartbeat pulses through the bark into your spine, slow, steady, patient, beyond human comprehension. Through that contact, you sense the vast network of roots beneath your feet, trees connected to trees in an underground web of mutual support and shared resources. The revelation that follows is profound. Strength does not have to mean isolation. These trees, some of the most powerful living things you have ever encountered, survive and thrive through connection, not separation. Their individual magnificence is made possible by their willingness to share resources and support each other through drought and storm and the changing seasons. You have been thinking of your legendary power as something that automatically separated you from others. But what if that was never true? What if the separation came not from the power itself, but from your fear of what others might do with it if they got too close? The possibility opens up new landscapes of potential relationships, new ways of being in the world that don't require choosing between strength and connection. Continuing downward, you come to the waterfall you encountered during your ascent, but viewing it from above as you descend changes its entire character. From this perspective, you can see how the water gathers itself from a dozen smaller streams before taking the leap into space. The tremendous roar and display of force at the bottom is made possible by the quiet convergence of many smaller flows at the top. This too feels like a teaching about the nature of power. True strength might not come from a single source burning in isolation, but from the integration of many different energies working in harmony. Your legendary power has always felt singular, monolithic, but perhaps that was because you never learned how to connect it to the other streams within yourself. Compassion, curiosity, the capacity for joy that you glimpsed in your childhood visions. The sun is setting by the time you reach the sacred pool where your journey of ascent began. But instead of continuing past it, back toward the meadow, you find yourself drawn to stop here once more. The pool's surface reflects the early evening sky, now painted in shades of rose and gold that seem to glow with their own inner light. Kneeling beside the water, as you did before, you peer into its depths. The reflection that meets your eyes is unmistakably the same face, but something fundamental has changed. The constant tension around your eyes has been replaced by a quality of alert stillness. The hard line of your mouth has softened into something that might even become a smile. Most significantly, the burning intensity that usually characterized your gaze has transformed into something deeper and more sustainable. Not the fierce glare of barely controlled power, but the steady light of power that has found its proper purpose. You understand that you will never again be the person who knelt at this pool days ago. That version of yourself, consumed by anger and isolated by legend, has been left behind somewhere on the mountain slopes, like outgrown clothing. What has taken its place is still recognizably you, but freed from the constraints of old assumptions about what your strength must mean. The path beyond the sacred pool leads not back to the meadow where your journey began, but to new territory entirely. You follow it through groves and clearings you have never seen before, trusting the same instinct that has guided you throughout this pilgrimage. The staff the old man gave you taps against stones and roots as you walk, its rhythm becoming a kind of meditation that keeps you centered in the present moment. As twilight deepens into full darkness, you begin to see lights ahead through the trees, not the harsh glare of artificial illumination, but the warm glow of fires and lanterns that speaks of human habitation. Your steps slow as you approach this unexpected settlement, uncertain how to present yourself to people who might know the legends that surround your name. But as you emerge from the forest into a clearing where several simple buildings cluster around a central courtyard, the reception you receive surprises you completely. A few people are moving about their evening tasks, drawing water from a well, tending cooking fires, securing livestock for the night. They look up at your approach without fear, their faces showing curiosity rather than alarm. "Welcome, traveler," calls an elderly woman who seems to be some kind of leader or elder. "You look as though you've come a long way. Will you share our fire and our food?" The offer of hospitality, extended without question or condition, touches something deep within your chest. When was the last time someone looked at you and saw simply a person in need of warmth and nourishment? You accept gratefully, allowing yourself to be led to a place beside the central fire where others have gathered for the evening meal. The food is simple but delicious: vegetables roasted in the coals, bread baked in clay ovens, stew that has been simmering all day until the meat falls apart at the touch of a spoon. As you eat, conversation flows around you in the easy way of people who have known each other for years. They include you naturally in their talk, asking about your travels, but not pressing when your answers remain general. A young child, perhaps 6 or 7 years old, approaches you with the fearless curiosity that characterizes the very young. She studies your face with intense concentration, then announces solemnly, "You have sad eyes, but they're getting happier." Her observation, delivered with the unconscious wisdom that children sometimes possess, brings unexpected moisture to those same eyes. You realize she is right. There is still sadness there. Perhaps there always will be, but it is no longer the bitter anguish that once consumed you. It has been transformed into something gentler, more like the melancholy that comes from understanding life's complexity rather than being crushed by it. "What makes eyes happy?" you ask her, genuinely curious about her perspective. She considers this seriously, tilting her head to one side. "Seeing good things," she decides, and being with nice people, and helping when someone needs it. Her simple formula for happiness resonates with truths you're only beginning to understand. You have spent so many years focused on your own pain and anger that you forgot about the healing power of connection, of contribution, of choosing to see beauty rather than only suffering. As the evening progresses, you find yourself drawn into the community's activities in small ways. You help bank the fires for the night, your strength making quick work of moving logs that would be difficult for others to handle. You assist in securing doors and shutters against the night winds, your height allowing you to reach latches that others must strain for. Each small act of service feels like practice in being the person your mountain vision showed you, someone who uses power to help rather than harm. When it comes time to sleep, they offer you space in one of their buildings, but you find yourself preferring to remain under the open sky. You make a bed of blankets beside the dying embers of the central fire, listening to the gentle sounds of the settlement settling into rest. Guard dogs patrol the perimeter with quiet efficiency. Children's voices drift from windows as parents tell bedtime stories, and somewhere in the distance, someone plays a simple melody on a wooden flute. These sounds of peaceful domesticity create a lullaby more effective than any you have ever known. For the first time in longer than you can remember, you fall asleep not from exhaustion, but from contentment. Your dreams filled not with violence and vengeance, but with images of gardens growing and children laughing and communities thriving under the protection of strength used wisely. When morning comes, you wake to find the child from the evening before sitting cross-legged nearby, watching you with the same intense concentration she showed when she diagnosed the happiness of your eyes. When she sees you're awake, she smiles brilliantly and holds out her hand. "I picked this for you," she says, offering a small wildflower that must have taken considerable searching to find in the pre-dawn darkness. It's the same color as the happy parts of your eyes. The flower is indeed a deep green that matches the new light you have begun to see in your own reflection. You accept her gift with a solemnity that matches the spirit in which it was offered, understanding that you're holding more than a flower. You're holding proof that transformation is possible, that even legendary figures can be seen simply as people worthy of kindness. Your departure from the settlement becomes a ceremony of quiet blessing. Though no formal rituals are performed, the people who shared their fire and food with you gather to see you off, each offering something for your continued journey: a piece of fruit for sustenance, a small carved token for luck, words of encouragement for the path ahead. The child who gave you the flower presses something else into your hand, a smooth pebble painted with simple symbols that she explains represent friendship and safe travels. As you walk away from the cluster of buildings and back into the wilderness, you carry with you more than these physical gifts. You carry the memory of being welcomed without question, of having your strength seen as a resource for community good rather than a threat to be feared. Most importantly, you carry the growing certainty that this is how you want to move through the world, not as a legend or a weapon, but as a person capable of both power and kindness. The path you follow now seems to choose itself, winding through landscapes that feel both familiar and strange. You recognize elements from your earlier journey: meadows, like the one where this all began, streams that sing the same songs as the sacred river, mountains that rise with the same ancient dignity. But everything seems somehow more vivid, more present, as if your changed perspective has polished the world to a brighter shine. Hours pass in comfortable solitude as you walk, the staff from the mountain elder, keeping rhythm with your steps. Your mind wanders freely, no longer consumed by the circular thoughts of anger and resentment that once dominated your consciousness. Instead, you find yourself making plans, not grand schemes of conquest or revenge, but simple intentions to seek out opportunities to help, to protect, to use your legendary strength in service of life rather than destruction. As the sun reaches its zenith, you crest a hill and see before you a sight that stops you in your tracks. Spread across the valley below is the most beautiful landscape you have ever witnessed, a patchwork of cultivated fields and wild spaces, villages connected by winding roads, rivers that catch and scatter sunlight like handfuls of thrown diamonds. It is a vision of harmony between civilization and nature, of human communities that have learned to live as part of the larger web of life rather than in opposition to it. But what captures your attention most completely is a gathering taking place in the largest meadow at the valley's heart. Hundreds of people are assembled there, not for battle or conflict, but for what appears to be some kind of festival or celebration. Even at this distance, you can hear the faint sounds of music and laughter carried on the wind. You begin your descent toward the gathering, drawn by curiosity and by something deeper, a recognition that this moment, this place, this community of celebration might be exactly where you need to be. As you draw closer, you begin to make out individual figures among the crowd. Your breath catches as you recognize faces that have been part of your story. Goku, his eternal optimism undimmed by whatever challenges he has faced. Vegeta, his pride transformed into something that serves others rather than only himself. Gohan, grown into the gentle strength that was always his destiny. They see you approaching long before you reach the edge of the gathering, and you brace yourself for reactions you have learned to expect: fear, anger, the reaching for weapons or defensive stances. Instead, what you see in their faces is something you never dared hope for: welcome. Goku is the first to move toward you, his characteristic grin spreading across his features. Broly, he calls out, and his voice carries joy rather than challenge. You look different, good, different. Others gather around as you join the edge of the celebration, and you realize they are right. You must look different because you feel different. The constant anger that once radiated from you like heat from a forge has been replaced by something cooler and more stable. Where once your presence brought tension and fear, now it seems to bring a sense of safety and strength that others can lean into rather than flee from. What is this gathering? You ask, gesturing toward the festival that continues around you with music and dancing and the joyful chaos of community celebration. A harvest festival, Gohan explains, his scholarly nature evident in the way he provides a context. Communities from across this region come together annually to celebrate the growing season and share the fruits of their labor. It's about abundance, gratitude, and he pauses, studying your face with the same intensity the child showed when she diagnosed your changing eyes. The idea that strength is best measured by what it helps to grow rather than what it destroys. The words hit you with the force of revelation. This is what you have been searching for without knowing it, a place where your legendary power could be not just accepted, but welcomed, where your strength could become part of something larger and more beautiful than yourself alone. As the evening progresses, you find yourself drawn deeper into the celebration. You help with tasks that require your unique capabilities, lifting heavy objects, reaching high places, providing security that allows others to relax completely into joy. But more than that, you find yourself simply enjoying the festivities, the music that makes your feet want to move in rhythm, the food that tastes of sunshine and careful cultivation, the laughter that bubbles up from conversations with people who see you as a person rather than a legend. When full darkness falls and lanterns are lit throughout the gathering, the celebration takes on a magical quality. Dancing begins in earnest, with couples and groups moving in patterns that speak of traditions passed down through generations. You watch from the edges at first, content to observe, but eventually you find yourself drawn into the dance by the same child who welcomed you at the settlement. She has somehow found her way to this larger gathering and recognizes you immediately. "Dance with me," she commands, with the imperious confidence that only children possess, and you find you cannot refuse. Your movements are awkward at first. You have never learned the steps to dances designed for celebration rather than combat, but she guides you patiently, her small hands in yours, teaching you rhythms that have nothing to do with violence and everything to do with the simple joy of movement for its own sake. As the night reaches its deepest point, the formal dancing gives way to something more spontaneous and freeform. People move as the music moves them, individuals and groups flowing together and apart like water finding its own level. In this unstructured celebration, you discover a way of moving that feels completely natural, not the explosive bursts of power that characterize your fighting style, but something fluid and graceful that expresses strength through restraint rather than release. Other dancers begin to orbit around you, drawn by the unexpected grace of your movement and the sense of safe strength that radiates from your transformed presence. Without meaning to, you become a kind of anchor point for the dance, a center of stability around which others can spin and leap and express their own joy more freely. The music builds to a crescendo that seems to involve every instrument and voice in the gathering, and in that moment of collective expression, you feel something shift within your very DNA. The legendary power that has defined you for so long stops feeling like a burden or a weapon and becomes instead what it was always meant to be, a gift to be shared, a fountain of energy that can lift up everyone around you rather than threatening to destroy them. When the music finally winds down and the dancing slows to a gentle swaying, you find yourself surrounded by people who no longer see the legendary Super Saiyan. When they look at you, they see Broly, not the legend or the prophecy or the weapon, but the person who learned to dance, who carries flowers given by children, who knows the weight of water cupped in reverent hands and the sound of wind through mountain passes. As the festival crowd begins to disperse to their various campsites and temporary shelters, you realize you have found what you didn't know you were looking for. Not a place to hide from your legend, but a way to transform it into something beautiful. Your legendary power remains as vast as ever, but now it serves connection rather than separation, growth rather than destruction, the celebration of life rather than its ending. You find a quiet spot at the edge of the meadow where you can see both the dying embers of the festival fires and the vast star field overhead. As you settle into meditation, you feel the presence of everything you have become integrated within your consciousness: the peaceful wanderer, the grateful student, the protective strength, the dancer, the friend. In your hand, the small flower given by the child has somehow remained fresh throughout all your travels, its petals still soft and its color still true. As you hold it up to catch the starlight, you see in its simple beauty a reflection of your own transformation, something that appeared fragile but proved resilient, something that brings joy through its very existence rather than through what it can do or destroy. The night wind carries the scent of the festival, cooking fires, and trampled grass, and the lingering perfume of flowers worn in celebration. It carries also the sound of distant laughter and the gentle murmur of people settling into sleep after a day of perfect community. These sounds and scents surround you like a lullaby as you close your eyes and feel your consciousness expand to encompass all the spaces you have traveled: the meadow, the stream, the sacred pool, the mountain peak, the settlement, and now this place of gathering and celebration. You are no longer the legendary Super Saiyan, as others defined that title. You are something new, a legend rewritten by its own choices, a prophecy fulfilled not through destruction, but through the courage to grow beyond the expectations that sought to contain you. Your power pulses through you like a second heartbeat, no longer a fire that burns everything it touches, but a sun that gives life to everything within its warmth. In the deep peace of this understanding, surrounded by the evidence of community and connection, you finally achieve the rest that has eluded you for so long. Your dreams, when they come, are filled with gardens growing under your protection, children playing in the safety your strength provides, and communities flourishing, because legendary power has learned to serve rather than destroy. The last thing you are aware of before sleep takes you completely is the gentle weight of the flower in your hand and the knowledge that tomorrow will bring new opportunities to be the person you have chosen to become, not despite your legendary power, but because of how you have learned to wield it in service of life, growth, and the endless possibility of transformation. End of narrative.